The Development Review Committee meeting for Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. This meeting will be recorded. We're researching project number 120230070, Heritage Potomac. This meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions or get any clarification on any comments that they have received last week. Therefore, we will start the meeting with the lead reviewer, Josh Penn.
Good morning, all. Josh Penn, Up County Planning, here with the preliminary plan for Heritage Potomac. This is a follow-up to the conditional use application that was approved. We have on the screen here the thing. We have a retirement community that is split between duplex, triplex, and then a family unit in the rear with a recreation center in the rear and south of the site. Based upon previous discussions, we had a lot of the issues worked out during the conditional use, but we are here for any red flag items that the applicant might have.
Okay, applicant, you can start with any questions that you have for Mr. Penn.
Thank you, everyone. Pat Harris with Lurch-Early and Brewer. Here with me are Ken Warmold from Warmold Companies, and then we have our Soltez team with us today as well. So as Josh said, I think we sort of have the benefit of this project being very well vetted during the conditional use process. So as reflected in the DRC comments, we're sort of down to a handful of comments. And I'll go through those now. There's two that I'll save to then, which I would say are the two that I still think are unresolved, and we may just have a difference of opinion with staff on those. But so one comment was that where are we providing the 5% short-term bike parking? And while the conditional use granted, the hearing examiner in connection with the conditional use granted a waiver of the bike parking requirements, we nonetheless are proposing, though it was not shown, and so we will show it, a short-term bike rack in front of the gym/amenity building, which is the building south of right there. Yes. So that will be, when we resubmit the plans, we will definitely show that. There was a comment about extending the natural, or looking into extending the natural surface trail along the, I'm going to call it eastern, but it's the page, the bottom of the page as shown on the screen, the eastern property line down to South Glen Road. The natural surface trail, the access to it is actually provided from the sidewalk in between units. I can't see the number. I can't see the unit number, but yeah, right there. And there really is not any ability further to the left. Correct. Thank you. Right there. Unfortunately, because of stormwater management facilities along the back of the townhouses along the eastern property line, there is not the room to extend that natural trail surface further down. And the intent of the natural trail surface was really to limit it to the northern portion of the site where the forest conservation area is. But there is nonetheless well thought out and revised several times pedestrian circulation system within with the use of sidewalks within the interior of the site. There was a question or a comment to provide street trees along South Glen Road, and the applicant can certainly do that. That's going to tie into a comment I'm going to make in a little couple minutes later about the sidewalk along South Glen Road, but irrespective of the resolution of the sidewalk, we can certainly add some trees along South Glen Road. Another comment had to do with add more canopy trees internal to the site. In looking over the DRC comments, we realized that we had failed to provide staff with a landscaping plan. and we will resubmit that, but you will see from the landscaping plan that the project is already very heavily treed within just with landscaping trees alone, we have 172 deciduous trees. That doesn't include the additional deciduous trees added in the forest areas. And it also doesn't include the ornamental trees or the evergreen trees that are being provided as well, that's over 100 of those types of trees. So there's really, and again, I don't know if it would be helpful at this time if you want us to put up the landscape plan that we have, but there's really not any additional area where we could put additional canopy trees.
Yeah, if you could just upload that plan when you do your next upload, we can take a look at it then. I think I know what you're saying because I saw it as part of the conditional use, but when we were using this files, we did not see it there, so.
Okay, yeah, that was our bad, our apologies. A general clarification just moving forward, and that is, there was a comment, I think by DOT that, or wasn't a comment, but they stated the term private roads. And in fact, these are not private roads as provided for in the county code. They're considered private drives. So I just don't want to I want to make sure that we don't end up with any confusion later on in terms of what the status of the interior drive is.
And Pat, this is Rebecca. That's fine. That's
Yeah,
no problem.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. And then that takes me to the two comments that I think we have previously discussed, and we still feel pretty firm about these. One is the comment that there should be a sidewalk along South Glen Road. And our reason for continuing to think that that is not a good idea, it are several reasons. I would say the primary reason is vetted in the safety issue, and that is there is not any other sidewalk along all of South Glen Road. And so to provide a sidewalk just along the limited frontage of this site, which I believe is about 300 feet, it's a sidewalk to nowhere. And you're encouraging older people to come out and walk along a sidewalk that leads nowhere. And there's safety concerns, and it just doesn't make sense. The other thing is, from a contextual standpoint, one of the things we tried very hard to do in the conditional use was to make sure that this project weaves into the fabric of the surrounding area. And to add a sidewalk to just this site when there are no sidewalks anywhere else makes it stand out. I mean, we're putting an exclamation point on this project as opposed to making it look like it's part of the overall community. And I will say that while we had our disagreements with the neighbors on several issues, that's one issue that we stand aligned in, that they also don't want to see a sidewalk out there for the reasons that I stated. If at some point in the future, the county decides to have a planned sidewalk network there, then it makes perfect sense, but we are aware of no plans, and therefore it just doesn't make sense.
So
Go ahead.
I'd like to address that. Two things. One is I agree with you on the old people walking in the street, and that was one of my arguments on another project, which I wanted sidewalk. In this case, I think that there is a county code requirement based on the classification of the roadway to provide sidewalk. And that could be the issue. I think that is, Chris. I don't know if Chris is online, but that was my thought, that was
Brett's
the
here.
issue.
Yeah. Brett's here, Rebecca.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you're completely right.
Yeah. So that's the issue. So you need to, I don't know if there's if we reference it, I think is in chapter 49. Maybe you guys planning staff can go over it further.
It's in the complete street design guidelines. So based on the classification for South Glen Road, technically there is a planned side path that would extend from East Glen to the northwest down to Falls Road. So that's where, for some clarification on my comment.
Wait, say that again. There's the complete streets.
So the Complete Streets Design Guidelines classification for South Glen Road recommends a side path that would extend from Deep Glen to the northwest down to Falls Road. But that's where my comment came from about adding a sidewalk just along your property frontage, because possibly sometime in the future, a side path might be constructed along South Glen.
And
Well,
Pat, just
I-
so we're clear, this is 55 plus independent living, right? There's like no hospital, memory care, doctor's office or anything. It's just independent living, either multifamily or this like townhouse
No, that's
multifamily, right?
No, that's not correct. So there is independent living, you have that right, but there's also assisted living and memory care in the
Lodge.
lodge, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I haven't gone through the complete streets in fine detail. We did take a look at, in fact, Jane from Soltes had pulled a provision this was from the bicycle master plan that about language recognizing that although there's recommendations for certain improvements, that if there's not a network at the time, that it may not make sense. And I'm pretty certain, but I will confirm that first of all, complete streets, it's a guideline, it's not statute. And second of all, I'm pretty certain, though I haven't looked for this, that there is probably language in there about in some instances there's a need for flexibility.
So what we do is a lot of times, like we do with the sidewalks, is we ask you to show it on the plan to make sure that it will fit within the existing right of way. And if it's not, then we need additional right of way for the improvement. And so we'll ask for you to show that on the plan at this point, and then we'll look further at it and see what the requirements are and see if it's if you have to build it or not. There is a provision in the code, I think it's still in there in chapter 49 that said you had to build sidewalks on streets that are primary residential or higher or something like that.
Yeah,
So I'm not
that's-
sure if that,
Yeah, it's 4933.
yeah.
But
So-
I had a project not fairly recently, it was in Tacoma
So-
Park, where there are exceptions, though.
Yes, so you show the sidewalk and then we can waive the sidewalk and you pay the fee for it.
And frankly, that would be fine. This isn't a financial thing. I mean,
Right.
if you have a coffer so that sometime in the future, that would be
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah, so like I said, show the sidewalk. It doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna build it, but you can waive the fee. You can
Okay,
waive
but
the
you make me a
sidewalk
little-
and pay the fee.
can we add a note to the plan saying instead of actual construction fee will be paid? I'm a little concerned that if we don't agree with actually constructing it, that if we put it on the plan without a note, that could be misread.
That's a question for planning, I think, right? I don't know how we normally deal with it. So,
We require it to be shown, then
Yeah.
DPS can waive it if
Yeah.
they see fit.
So it would still have to be shown on the plan, but ultimately it would be up to DPS to make the decision to either waive it or have you construct it. So you'd still have to show it regardless, but it would.
It kind of doesn't
Morning,
make
Pat. Yeah,
sense.
yeah, I just wanted to say the same thing as Brett mentioned and Rebecca mentioned. DPS has authority to waive the sidewalks that don't connect to any other existing facility on either side. So we've had this done for a few other projects, so that wouldn't be an issue.
Wait, what was the last thing you said, Sam? You've done it for other projects and then what?
Yes, I mean, we had this process has been implemented for other projects that have been through subdivision, and the sidewalk is provided on the plan and adopted. And then at the time of permit, the code allows Department of Permitting Services to waive sidewalks under certain circumstances. One being the sidewalk is not connecting to any other existing facilities.
Okay. And then just out of curiosity, is the fee based on just X linear feet of sidewalk times a number?
The fees, essentially, the code requires the fee to be exact equivalent of construction.
Okay,
So whatever it takes to construct a sidewalk, that would be the fee that needs to be provided.
Understood. Okay, then the only other comment, and actually it may be helpful if whoever's controlling the screen, if you can shift the screen to the right a little bit. That was too much. No, I'm sorry, so that the South Glen Road shows.
That work for you?
Can you shift it just a tad more?
That's the edge of the paper right there. This is South
It
Glen right
is?
here. South Glen is, can you,
So that's.
No, so I can't see it on my screen for some reason.
This is
Oh.
sheet one.
Perhaps if you enlarge a little bit more or something. But that's showing the 70-foot right of, well, no, it's not, but 70
Okay,
foot right.
That's
by
good.
there.
Okay. Now I can see it. So the question was, or the request was for us to take a look at potentially shifting the driveway that serves the 3 townhouses at front South Glen to the rear. And I think there was concern about queuing. From a transportation standpoint, first of all, we should clarify, and this is our bad again, we've called the feature at the entrance a gatehouse, but it's not a gatehouse. There's no gate. It will be a entrance gazebo, if you will, with a security camera, but there's no gate so that it's not as if that's going to create a queuing situation. Second of all, there's only 3 townhouses, independent living units at the front that would be coming out that drive. It's a low traffic generator. You don't have AM and PM traffic associated with these uses. So there's simply not a traffic reason to have to shift that drive further to the north. And then I would also say, I know just historically from a design standpoint, staff has always had some concern about front-loaded structures, but a couple comments there. First of all, as you can see, the structures themselves are set back 140 feet from the front property line. And there's a berm in front that's with landscaping on top. So that feature is not going to be visible. And then finally, I would say, as you can hopefully tell, the garages themselves are side accessed. So if you're taking a full-on frontal view of each independent living unit, you're not seeing the garage door. You're seeing the front facades. So there's no traffic reason, and there's really no design reason for that shift. And other than that, except for schedule, that concludes our comments on the remarks.
it's gonna cover anything. Yeah. No, I think we're pretty much good, and there or something. We did have a lot of previous approvals with the conditional use. I think we can move forward. I don't think we're going to have any issue with timeline. I would have to run the exact dates for you, Pat, but I will get those to you this afternoon.
Okay, and actually, thanks, Josh. One comment about the timeline. To the extent possible, and as many of you know, this project actually has been going on now for more than 4 years. But no fault of anyone in the BRC room, but just because of the complications associated with the conditional use. But having said that, we are very eager to start actually moving dirt here. And given that things were so well vetted, if there's any way that we can excel the schedule such that, instead of the typical 4 months to a hearing, it's 3.5 or 3, we would really appreciate it. I mean, we don't anticipate that we're going to need 2 rounds of comments here. We think that we could resubmit within 2 weeks and And that would set, that there's not going to be a second round of comments given how well this was vetted previously. So
Yeah,
any,
Pat, I was thinking the same thing for you, and that's why I didn't run the standard dates for this meeting, because I wanted to see if we can squeeze it at all. But I wanted to give myself enough time to make sure that's what you wanted after this meeting. So I will get back to you a better schedule this afternoon.
that's perfect. Greatly appreciated.
And Pat, before we move forward, this is Maggie Gallagher with DHCA. I just want to make sure, I know we met 2 weeks ago, but just wanted to make sure we're clear on the MPDU requirements, the, 3% of sales price for your 4 sale units, and then the potential for the alternative agreements that may be needed, or the 3 MPDUs on site for those independent living units, rental units.
Yes, thank you, Maggie. And I know I owe you a memo with respect to that, and I'll be getting that to you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we're very excited about this project. I mean, it's been a long time in the making, but we think it's going to be a fantastic project. So we really appreciate everyone's support on it.
Yeah.
Excuse
thank
me
you,
for
Pat.
1 second. Good morning, everyone. This is Matt Mikowski. I'm covering this meeting for zoning reviewer, Miss Laura Bradshaw. Ms. Harris, nice to speak with you again. We met several years back on site plan inspections. Just a quick question, being late to the party here. Is there any reference for high visibility end units that I could replay to the inspection staff for DPS?
No.
No.
Okay, just
Not on
asking,
this one.
not requiring it, just asking if it was a requirement. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, before we go, I just want to check and make sure we do not, or do we need any follow-up meetings, anyone?
Pat, are you feeling like you're good, or do we need to schedule a meeting after this?
I think we're good, unless Jane or Ken, do you feel, or Tim, a need for a meeting? I think we're clear on the direction.
All right, thank you, Pat. Thank you, team. You
Okay,
guys have a great rest of the week.
okay, thank you.